Smile is directed by Finn Parker and stars Sosie Bacon, Kyle Gallner, and among others. And in this story, it deals with a therapist that's dealing with the mysterious death of a lot of people that happen to be patients that are essentially dying in very disturbing ways. I can't really go into spoilers, but they all, when they die, they end up having these weird smiles on their faces when they die. And along the way, Sosie Bacon's character has to go and discover what's happening with all these victims. And along the way, she starts seeing some weird things of her own as the movie goes along, and she tries to get more information out of people that were connected to the victims. Now, here's a little backstory. Now, this movie was directed by Finn Parker that I'm not really too familiar with. Apparently, this is his first directed movie that he's done, and this was also based on his own short that he did, which I haven't seen the short, but this was essentially his way of essentially doing a full-length adaptation of that. And I got interested from it from the trailers because when I watched it a couple months ago, it was one of those kind of trailers that I was interested, but I kind of was kind of like wondering how it was going to play out because that whole notion of the whole crazy smiles and stuff, it was in some ways kind of giving me flashbacks to trailers I was seeing originally with Truth or Dare. Now, not on quite the same quality level, but I was just saying on the first impressions, at least on that kind of like weird smile kind of level with that, was what I kind of thought that the movie was kind of going into on that kind of on that kind of premise at least. And after upon seeing the film, I can honestly say that this was definitely one of the more surprising films I've seen of the year, and pretty disturbing and very creepy as hell. And to get my pros out of the way, I got to really enjoy Sosie Bacon in this. I'm not really too familiar with her. I actually just found out that she's actually the daughter of Kevin Bacon, and that's actually really surprising because Kevin Bacon's been in a lot of great horror films that I've seen over the years, and it's really cool that there's now that actors and actresses have now had their kids that are now become actors and actresses in movies and stuff. It's just really fun to see how they do that with when they have connections with their relatives and stuff. And so I thought she was really great in this. I think she really carried it her own, and she in a way has her performance kind of reminds me a lot like Elizabeth Moss's performance from the Invisible Man remake that came out a couple years ago. On that kind of level where she throughout the film is very kind of not sleeping too much, where she's got like bags on her eyes and shit. You can tell she's just very like probably hasn't like showered in a while. Like it's just really on that kind of psychological toll that it takes on her. She really pulls it off, and you can really feel a lot of the tension and a lot of the emotion that surrounds her, and especially when it gets into some really deep stuff surrounding with her and this backstory that she has later on in the film. That does add some really good elements to her character. I also got to really enjoy Kyle Gallner in this. I've really kind of really appreciated the guy as an actor over the years, especially with him playing in movies like the Nightmare on Elm Street remake that I thought he was great in, and even earlier this year when he was in Scream. And so you can tell the guy just is always constantly being put out in horror movies left and right, and I think he really pulled it off playing as the cop that's investigating, that is trying to find out more about the case and everything with all these deaths, where he's trying to help Sosie Bacon's character. And they also had a former relationship together at one point. And it was also really surprising to see Kal Penn in this. And I haven't seen him in anything for a long time, too. And when I first saw the trailers, I was like, wait, is that Kumar from Harold and Kumar? Yeah. He's in this, and I was just really surprised to see him in a movie because I hadn't seen him in anything in a long time, and so he was great. He doesn't really have much to do with his character in this as much like I thought, because he just plays more of a doctor that's kind of overseeing Sosie Bacon's situation that's going on at the hospital of where she works at and everything like that. But I thought he was really good. And then one of the other biggest praise I have the most is the direction in this, with how it was able to craft a lot of great, not only good jump scares when they were timed right, but the tension that it builds up to with a lot of scenes where you're just not really too sure if it's either reality or if it's actually part of either the things that characters are seeing in the film. And I'll leave it there because there's some things I can't really get into detail with, because it plays into some really kind of mindfuck throughout the movie. But the way that it goes with its direction with a lot of those scares, they were timed very well. And this to me, I think, is how you really do jump scares very well, and how you really time it right. but also use it to its advantage to where it's not beating you over head with, you know, a lot of fake outs. There are some fake outs that happen a couple times to the film, but they didn't really bother me too much because when it's done right, it does use the real jump scares to its advantage. And then one of the other biggest praise I got to give with the direction in this is how there are certain transition scenes with the filmmaking where you'll have like a scene like in the where it shows like in the background of a window or something, and it's like zooming out, or sorry, zooming in, and then it transitions into another scene. I like the way that was doing that because it really makes it seem like it was seamlessly going into the next scene and puts you in that kind of what's it called, disoriented kind of way. And so I thought that was great. And then one of the other ones I got to really appreciate the most is the score in this. I thought the score was not only fantastic with its kind of like very eerie kind of I don't know if it's like chorus or like just weird like voices kind of music, I guess is the way to describe, but it's like a cross between like the score I'm listening to from The Shining, and it would be something that you would probably hear from like the 80s that probably John Carpenter or some other, you know, well-known composer would put in those kind of synthesized kind of music kind of that you would hear from that era. That was also the same kind of compliment I gave for Barbarian, where you had that very similar vibe. And both movies do work with their advantage with that. And so that was great. And then not really much else to go off of. If I have like any really minor cons, I will say that like I said, some of the jump scares can be a little hard to really get into because they can be the couple that were faked out didn't really work too well. And then there's also some other aspects toward like the third act that does kind of question more the rules that were established throughout the film, that just was kind of making me really kind of think back. And it's one of those movies where I don't know if it's either a good thing or a bad thing about how the movie doesn't really fit together certain things that are explored with how the way these deaths are occurring and things like that. The way that this entity works. I'll leave it there. And also, it does kind of also take some liberties from other films I've seen that were done better with, like Final Destination and It Follows, and using similar concepts that I thought were explored a lot better in those other films that I just mentioned. But with that being said, though, with given that, I still thought it was a hell of a great time, and definitely one of the most biggest surprises for me for the year. And so with that, I'm going to give the movie a very high, extremely high compelling grade on the Film Freaks meter. For those of you who have also seen Smile, let me know in the comments below what you thought about it. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next review. I'll see you later.